the Future Godfather, and welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to be talking about the new album from Alexander Panos, Nascent. Alright, so now that I talked about an artist who specializes in the subgenre of electronic music that is more minimal, let's talk about someone who specializes in something more abstract and out there. Alexander Panos is an American electronic music producer from Chicago, Illinois, who specializes in arguably his own unique brand of experimental and IDM music. I first came across his music out of nowhere when his 2021 single Always Breaking, Always Healing appeared on Searman's submission ranking video that he made for part 2 of his 200 subscriber special a year ago. The moment I first heard an excerpt of this track, I was really intrigued by it, and after listening to that track in full, I became so impressed by it that I wound up just calling it not only one of my favorite tracks of last year, but also one of my all-time favorite tracks as well. Probably top 20 of all time at this point, if I'm being honest. The way everything flowed together, from the offbeat but beautiful guitars in the beginning and the end, to the uplifting orchestral strings, to the ridiculously palpable mix of chopped up samples, vocoders, and especially Alexander singing on it, definitely made for one of the most mind-blowing experiences I've had with music this decade. Just a fantastic track, all things considered, with a huge amount of heart and soul put into it. Of course, after getting into that track and absolutely loving it, I instantly became a fan of his and started diving headfirst into some of his other singles that appeared on a 2019 compilation of tracks that he made in between 2015 and 2018, including his 2015 single, All We Are, his 2016 single, Moments, and his 2017 singles, Scorpius and Derealize. Even though they don't top Always Breaking, Always Healing for me personally, I still can't deny how great they truly are from a creative and pacing standpoint as well. Especially with the first two tracks, I felt like I was listening to a combination of the IDM side of BT, a la The Stars Are Eternal, So Are You and I, and some of deadmau5's piano cuts that appeared on Wild Wildest Lesson 2, i.e. Creep, or pretty much anything from the 7 EP. Most notably Superbia for Moments. And to top all of this off, he also collaborated with none other than Hudson Lee on the track Staring Up, which would go on to appear on his album Reflex Angle. Speaking of which, you can also check out my ranking video I did on that album by clicking on the info card in the top right corner if you're curious. Even though I don't necessarily give out commentary for that video at all, aside from the end where I just summarize what I think about that album as best as I can, you can still feel free to check it out if you want to. That album's great, by the way. With all that said, I was really hyped for the prospect of an actual debut album from him, and he actually released it on September 22nd, which was the start of the autumnal equinox, aka fall for all you simplistic people out there. And now that it has been already nearly a month since it came out, what do I think about it? Surprise! It's fantastic as hell. According to the Bandcamp page for this album is about the, quote, desire to become a better human being, longing to actively participate in the world around you, striving to actualize your potential, and finding meaning in this process, end quote. If I can be blunt for a second, considering the definition of the word nascent, that is some impressive word painting right there. And that sense of word painting, to me, actually kind of bleeds through some of the writing on some of the songs on this thing. Hell, the Bandcamp page also says that it's about the writing process and its consequences. Combine all of that with impressive experimental and IDM production, as well as some impeccable transitions, and you pretty much got this LP. Now, without any further ado, let's go down track by track. Fair warning though, I am gonna go all in depth, even more so than my previous review. So sit back, get some popcorn, relax, and let's get this show on the road. The intro cue Windswept exactly lets you know that this thing is not your ordinary album. This is letting you know that you're going on a fucking journey right here. Throughout 1 minute 24-second runtime, you get these typically impressive vocal chops that you would expect out of a track from him at this point, along with some alluring melodies, awesome synth settings, nicely integrated watery sound effects, and most importantly, a dynamic sense of a vast and spacious atmosphere to boot. This was gonna be my least favorite track on the album at one point, but that kind of felt like a cop-out to do that. Plus, it's just a phenomenal intro for what it's worth. Things only get better from here as we make a subtle transition into the track Cycles, which, fun fact, is actually the only pre-album single on the entire record, as it was originally released as one in 2019. Even though it's the oldest of the 10 tracks here, it does not feel out of place at all. 6 minutes of nothing but impressive glitch work, ranging from beautiful twinkling melodies contrasting well with nice as always vocal chops in the beginning, to the middle section, which sounds like something similar in style to BT's This Binary Universe. Much like the last track, it has such a huge atmosphere and a lot of details that go into this that make the track work to the fullest potential. And my god, I just love that middle section so much. Gorgeous world-building pads, beautiful guitars, those occasional neat pauses where you get the beat in Alexander's vocals, and even towards the end where you get some more glockenspielish melodies and even some harmonic ukulele-sounding melodies too. Yeah, truly one of the best tracks he's ever done. We follow that up with Sutter, which is a really interesting track for sure. The most notable thing about it is that it does have these pretty nice reverse sounding synth pads throughout the track that actually sound similar to the track Dandelion from Boards of Canada's GeoGaddy. As someone who is very fond of that album and holds that up as the absolute best album from BOC, I can safely say that I indeed welcome synth settings like that with open arms on off-the-wall and abstract projects like this. On top of that, not only does it have some fantastic auto-tuned vocoders like usual, but I also love this dialogue between a man and a girl towards the start of the track, where the girl is saying that she wants more than a moment in the future. And that dialogue got lodged in my brain in a way that no other track has. That one singular part is kind of memorable in a way how Orbital's Impact the Earth is Burning is memorable, because, you know, it's like a cry for survival. Not only that, but that line from the dialogue actually plays a part in the track Reasons Not To, a track I will get to a bit later on, which goes to show this album's amazing sense of cohesiveness and continuity. But about this track, I really have nothing much to say about this other than it's just as smooth, atmospheric, and well-paced as every other track here. Another really great track to be sure. 36523_red/blue may very well be my least favorite track on the entire album, but that doesn't mean it's any less than great either. Out of the tracks here, I see that the synth settings are the most unique of them all too. Not to mention that the track as a whole is probably the most accessible as well because of the fast-paced, catchy vocoder synths somewhere in the track that give me a Porter Robinson's Nurture kind of feel, i.e. musician. The reason why the synths are pretty unique in a good way to me compared to the other tracks though is because of these nice low-key electric piano-like melodies towards the beginning of the track. It even goes for the more slightly unsettling by the 1 minute mark when the electric piano-like melodies then start to become a bit more macrotonal, even more low-key. Instantly making me think that this is a more uplifting version of some of the more melodically dissonant cuts on the effects twin selected ambient works volume 2, a la Curtains or Domino. That is before we get right back into the happier side of this track with Panos' MIDI sounding vocals that actually kind of remind me a bit of the work from Björk in some areas. Even knowing that there are other tracks on this thing that I would rather return to, I think this track is still great across the board and it's just as jam-packed with a chock full of emotions as everything else. After this, the track makes another nice transition into the aforementioned track that I talked a little bit about when I was talking about Sutter, Reasons Not To. It may be the only track that is purely vocoder-centric, but goddamn, even this one is a highlight. It starts with a synthesized voice that is reciting text in a different language that, for some reason, kind of sounds Russian to me. That is, until we get 1 minute into the song where it makes a nice switch into the lyrics that are based on the dialogue from the start of Sutter. I want more than a moment, I want a future. You see what I mean by this album's continuity? It's honestly insane how well this project flows, and I love it for that. And it does an absolutely fantastic job at contributing to this album's whole theme about learning to change and be willing. Of course, after the last time the voice says, I want a future, it makes another subtle transition back to the indecipherable synthesized vocals from before by the 2 minute mark. There's even a bit more filtering in that voice's second appearance too. Then by the 3 minute mark, it makes another transition to the I Want a Future verse again, this time with even more filtering than before. Then after transitioning back and forth between that verse and the foreign synthesized voice, we get more of Alexander singing by the 4 minute mark, and holy crap, the lyrics on the last verse are so memorable and catchy. I want a future, living in the present time, let it all go passing by. God, those melodies are beautiful. And the pauses in the mix do really evoke a distinctive feeling of isolation compared to any other track from this album on top of it. Just wow, it hits. What hits me even harder is the track that comes after it, Dream Extinction, where it sounds like this project's sheer explosivity is on full display here, with its heavily abrasive and chopped up sounding synth passages that take up the bulk of the track, and they contrast very well with both high-pitched and low-pitched vocoders. It kind of makes me feel like it's this album's equivalent to just straight-up hyperpop in the best way. The first 59 seconds of this track may very well be the most anxiety-inducing and just downright unsettling part of the entire record. It starts with some blippy synth notes before the track builds up by incorporating a mix of distorted bass and kids screaming. Yikes. However, it works as an amazing build-up to the middle abrasive synth section because of how well these two parts of the track work off each other. It actually kind of reminds me of Patricia Jackson's Failing from her Doraemon album, where the dark and foreboding first half and the uplifting but still totally bold second half both work off each other to immaculate results. As a bonus, I really love the addition of a beautiful female voice towards the end of the track too. To be my own self. Overall, this track is just tons of fun to listen to, and if I were to rank all the tracks from the album, this would be totally somewhere in the top 3 for me. Another fantastic track. Tracks 7 and 8 are both titled Equinox, with the first track, Equinox Prelude, being entirely build-up, and the second track simply called Equinox, being a payoff to that build-up. But much like the transition in between the first 59 seconds and the middle section of Dream Extinction, these two tracks, once again, work off each other excellently. I'm probably going to start sounding like a broken record from here on out, but the prelude to Equinox is just simply beautiful and mesmerizing. Especially in the first half of that prelude, where it opens up with these plucky sounding synths before building up to the next section with the help of some pads that get bombastic before the 13 or 14 second mark. By then, we also get introduced to not only this track's sense of minimalism, but also this track's amazing world building. I really love the piano integration, the watery sound effects, and even more sound effects that make me feel like I'm enjoying my life by a nearby beach or something. It just provides the listener with such a relaxing atmosphere, and that's what makes it a special prelude to such a special album. Of course, in typical Alexander Panos fashion, the second half of the prelude is all bombastic with chopped up synths and vocoders before culminating into an alluring orchestral string section, leading us into the actual Equinox track, which is my personal favorite on the entire album. This track is 2.5 minutes of craziness I will never forget. Ever. No other way for me to say it, but it is jam-packed with so many insane details that it's just indescribable. First off, I don't think I'm alone when I say that this is one of the most creative and out-of-the-box ideas I have ever heard from him to date. Second, not only is the sound design nuts as always, but the spoken word monologue is just incredibly integrated and also adds to the album's themes extremely well because of its precise wordplay. Especially the I place a bowl on that granite line. Wow. Combine that with even more beautiful violin integrations and pristine explosive payoffs, and you pretty much get one of my favorite tracks from him ever. Damn, if Always Breaking, Always Healing is the best track from him, then this track is like second best in his catalog for me personally. It's that good. What an emotional high of a track. Now we have made it to the home stretch of talking about individual tracks, as we end the album on two more tracks that, while sounding fairly soft compared to a lot of the tracks here, end the album on an overwhelmingly warm and fuzzy note. Penultimate cut, Catch It, is characterized by some beautiful piano playing, contrasting well with some backing beautiful synth passages, although it doesn't take long for this track to incorporate some more impressive glitch work that unsurprisingly works effectively on this album as per usual. Remember when I said that Dream Extinction feels like this album's equivalent to hyperpop thanks to these bombastic and abrasive synth pads? Well, this track, or more specifically about the first minute and 20 seconds of it, kind of makes me feel like it's this album's equivalent to lo-fi music, in that it kind of gives me a study feel when you focus on the synths being backed up by the glitch production. And more than anything, it just continues to provide the listener with such a relaxed vibe. And that also shows when we suddenly get these beautiful flutes followed by a guitar melody and a glockenspiel melody that both work off each other very well once more. The rest of the track incorporates more of the same aspects of this track I discussed about before, that also continues to flow together pretty well like the way a typical ambient track does, all things considered. Another track I adore here. And then the album ends with Returning, which is just as excellent of a closer to an album like this as one could get, with these transcendent melodies, both instrumentally and vocally, that just elevate me in a way that no other track from this year ever will. Not only that, but Alexander singing on this, and I know I keep mentioning his vocals quite a bit throughout this review, but his singing on this in particular is just... damn, it did nothing but hit me in the feels good and hard. I also surprisingly don't have much to say about this track compared to every other track in the track listing, because it has all the qualities that the sound of this album has that makes it a true standout, ranging from the vocoders in the beginning, to the overall pacing, to the piano integrations, to the synth passages, to even the beyond soul-lifting orchestral part that takes up the last minute or so of this track, that ends the track in the best way it can. Just... wow. Album closer of the year. And that's pretty much everything on Nascent. And man, that was fun to get through. And that's because there are so many details about this album that make it fantastically enjoyable for what it is. And that's why I went all in depth. I never disliked a single track here. Every track is at least great. Everything is cohesive and flows in a way that it can't be too subtle. And even my least favorite moments still contribute to the overall atmosphere and theming that this album explores. The way the amount of pure bliss was captured on the record was incredible. And this is honestly a masterclass, okay? A masterclass on how you can express some overwhelming emotions in the most abstract and experimental way possible and still stake the landing as someone who has such an unmistakable sound compared to any other experimental or IDM outfit, let alone any artist ever, that I have heard to this degree, period. If you're not the biggest fan of this kind of electronic music, then there's a good chance that you might not be able to get into this one as much as I have. Even I don't think it's a perfect album by any stretch, but it's pretty clear that the combination of Panos' hard-hitting writing and mind-boggling glitch production do make this not only one of the most essential albums of this year, but also of this decade. So if you are in fact a fan of experimental and IDM, or at the very least enjoy Alexander Panos' music, then I can't imagine you not getting into this one either. And if there's one album that tackled the theme of becoming indebatably the best way possible in recent memory, it would be Nascent. And that, my friends, is a big feat for an artist who has put their blood, sweat, and tears into this album for 3 whole years. And that in turn even inspires not only me, as someone who has been making music too, but also any aspiring no-name producers to keep at it with working hard on something that is this meaningful to them. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on the topic of this album, which stands behind only Dale Smith's Chorus Gate as my favorite album of 2022 so far. And yeah, it is that amazing. And thank you, Alexander, if you're watching this, for blessing my ears with such a damn near masterpiece. As for this project, this is very well deserving of, without any shadow of a doubt, a 9.3 out of 10. But what do you think about this album? If you have any thoughts on it, or if you'd like me to review something, you can feel free to let me know in the comments. Please remember that everything I said in this video is all my opinion and only reflects on personal enjoyment. If you want to listen to this album, I provided a Bandcamp link, which will be in the description of this video down below. Also, please subscribe to the channel if you want so you don't miss videos like this one. But yeah, this is it for today. Thank you for watching, and until then, this is me, the future Godfather, signing out. Take care, stay safe, and have a fantastic day.